If you don't want to be black, no problem. But can you please get the hell back? Last but not least, hit the Cash App for Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey.
Dr. Umar Johnson, the man who dubbed himself the Prince of Pan-Africanism, the loudest voice on stages screaming about liberation, unity, and black excellence, is now caught in a scandal shaking the very foundation of his brand. For over a decade, he begged his supporters to ride with him, to donate, to believe in his dream of building a school, a movement, a revolution. But now the burning question is this: what happens when the same man who preached empowerment is accused of trying to bleed a film producer for $500,000? This isn't gossip or internet chatter. This is betrayal in bold letters, and the woman involved is spilling every detail about what went down behind the scenes. It all began with what was supposed to be a dream project, a film designed to showcase Umar's so-called mission, his fire, his revolution. The producer opened her doors, her studio, her wallet, and most importantly, her trust to bring his vision to life. She believed she was working with a man who carried himself like a conscious king, a leader for the people. Instead, she claimed she found herself trapped in a nightmare with a manipulator who demanded silence, demanded control, and allegedly tried to bleed her for $500,000. Imagine that. The same man who told his followers to put consciousness over cookies now being accused of putting greed above loyalty. And the receipts? They don't stop. According to her, the editing was finished. The film was polished. The dream project was already alive on screen.
Quaker Grits is $20 million a year off black folks. Quaker Grits. Can I have your grit money for 1 year? Give me your grit money for 1 year, and I will build 10 schools across this country.
Yet behind those polished reels, she says Umar wasn't satisfied with the message unless he had his hands on every single lever of control. The accusations painted him not as a leader of liberation, but as a man obsessed with power, money, and the spotlight. What was once supposed to be a cultural breakthrough turned into a story that left supporters stunned, questioning if the Prince of Pan-Africanism had been playing his own people all along. The theaters were already booked. Screenings were lined up. But suddenly Umar slammed the brakes. According to her, nothing could move without his blessing. He allegedly blocked private screenings, dodged FaceTime calls, and shot down every compromise she offered. Then came the threats. Texts, emails, bold messages shouting across the screen. "You do not have my permission." That's what she says Umar yelled before lacing it with insults. He allegedly called her disrespectful, deceitful, even unprofessional. But the insults hit something deeper. The producer claims Umar wasn't just mad. He was calculating. He threatened legal action. He pushed a demand that looked less like a deal and more like a ransom. $500,000. Not partnership, not progress, but pressure. A price tag meant to break her spirit and make her fold.
Somebody left a weave at my school. Which one of you beautiful African sisters left your weave bun at the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey?
And the nightmare wasn't done. She says the real chaos was behind the curtain. Umar wasn't just controlling. He was reckless. She accuses him of openly flirting, pulling actresses into late-night meetings, blurring lines in ways that had nothing to do with liberation or black excellence. Do you want me to keep this exact short, punchy sentence style for the rest of the script too, or should I match the longer flow competitive flow from your first draft? He dangled fake promises of fame like bait. One actress's boyfriend even pulled her out of the film after finding out Umar allegedly got mixed up with someone in her own family. Suddenly, what was meant to be a movement turned into a circus, a set full of chaos, women upset, a producer humiliated, and a whole project collapsing under the weight of one man's ego. And through it all, Umar allegedly kept pushing, demanding more power, more control, more money. The producer says the stress was so overwhelming, she had to start therapy. Her blood pressure spiked every time she relived those 3 days of filming and the months of threats that followed. She didn't sugarcoat it either. She called Umar a financial rapist. Harsh, yes, but she says it fits exactly what he tried to do. She claims he studied her like a predator, digging into her finances, even looking up the value of her home and studio before targeting her for a $500,000 shakedown. Just let that sink in. A man trusted by thousands. A so-called leader of the people. allegedly plotting to drain a single mother dry for his own gain. And now the community is asking the real questions. How many women has he pulled this on? How many loyal donors got played while chasing the dream of his school? How many revolutions were just smoke and mirrors? The producer says she beat him this time, but she's speaking out because the next victim might not. And she brought receipts. The texts, the contracts, the all cap threats. They're still out there. And if she decides to drag Umar into court, everything could come spilling into the light. That's a nightmare he might not be able to outrun. The question now, will Umar bring real evidence to defend himself? Or will the truth finally rip his polished image apart for good? Because according to her, the deeper you dig into the scandal, the darker it gets. She says the second she refused to hand him the film, Umar flipped like a switch. The same man who once praised her as a queen and spoke about shared vision suddenly bombarded her with insults and legal threats. You do not have my approval. You will not use my likeness. You are a liar. I will see you in court. Imagine reading that, not from a stranger, but from Dr. Umar Johnson himself, a man she thought she was helping elevate, now turning into her biggest nightmare. And let's not forget, she invested her own money too. Around $5,000 of her own cash went into equipment, crew, and editing. She believed they'd both win from this project. But instead of gratitude, Umar allegedly tried to weaponize her work against her. He demanded the finished film, refused screenings, and made it clear, unless she bowed down, he'd bury her in court. That's when she realized Umar wasn't just being controlling, he was being dangerous. The producer insists this wasn't just about control. It was about erasure. He wanted her name gone, her investment gone, her role gone, so he could claim it all as his own. But what makes the scandal darker is the personal behavior that leaked through. She says that during just 3 days of filming, Umar wasn't acting like a leader or professional at all. Instead, he was chasing women, making suggestive comments, and cornering actresses into uncomfortable situations. One woman allegedly called producer at 5 a.m., stranded after Umar invited her to his hotel room, only to leave her waiting outside for an Uber in the middle of the night. Another actress was so uneasy, she brought her uncle to set of protection. These weren't rumors whispered on the sidelines. These were direct testimonies. Women who worked on the project, going straight to the producer with their stories, confirming the same disturbing pattern. She says she had to clean up the wreckage herself. Extra money came out of her own pocket, not for progress, but for protection. Protecting women on set. Protecting the project from lawsuits. Protecting her own name from being dragged down with the chaos. What was meant to be a film about empowerment twisted into a full-blown circus, and she was left patching it up alone. And by now, the polished picture of Dr. Umar Johnson that people once praised like a trophy, it's cracking, dented, slipping fast. The producer's accusations ripped the mask off the so-called Prince of Pan-Africanism. But the whispers swirling around the scandal hint there's more doubt waiting to explode. Because once one person speaks out, it unlocks others. Former donors, old supporters, even people who once called him a brother are suddenly resurfacing with their own uneasy stories. Some say they too felt drained, manipulated, or backed into corners when they didn't obey his rules. The film producer's story looks like the domino that tipped it all over, and now the floodgates are opening wide. Her account makes one thing painfully clear. Umar allegedly thrived on control. It wasn't enough for him to be admired or to collect a nation for his projects. He wanted dominance. He wanted to dictate how things looked, how people moved, how everything revolved around him. And when that didn't happen, the threats flew sharp as knives. Just picture it, those bold all-caps texts slamming into her phone. You do not have my approval. That wasn't about protecting his brand. That was about flexing power, keeping someone else under his thumb. And this is where things get darker. The producer's bravery cracked open a conversation many tried to avoid. How many women, how many supporters, how many collaborators have been through the same thing but stayed silent out of fear? She painted Umar as a man blurring lines between professional respect and predatory behavior, between leadership and exploitation. Remember the actress stranded at 5 a.m. after a hotel invite gone wrong? Or the one so uncomfortable she brought her uncle as a chaperone? Those aren't the moves of a leader. They're the red flags of someone reckless. The fallout wasn't just emotional. It was financial, too. The producer admitted she poured thousands of her own dollars into extra costs, shielding women on set, fixing problems he caused, and guarding the project from lawsuits. Imagine that. Thinking you're investing in empowerment, only to end up spending money to cover chaos created by the man who was supposed to inspire it. That's not collaboration. That's damage control. And it left her drained in every sense of the word. Then the internet caught fire. Once her story leaked, online detectives went digging. Twitter threads, Reddit forums, YouTube breakdowns. The receipts started stacking. Old interviews resurfaced. Past speeches replayed. Fans began connecting dots that had always been in plain sight. What once sounded like fiery passion now looked like arrogance. What once felt like leadership now looked like control disguised as confidence. And the memes? They hit hard. Screenshots of those alleged all-caps threats spread side by side with Umar's old sermons. The contrast was brutal, but memes were just the entry point. The deeper conversations cut sharper. Some supporters defended him, claiming he was being set up because of his outspoken views. Others couldn't ignore the weight of the producer's testimony. If this is true, then everything we've been supporting is a lie. One fan tweeted. Another wrote, "We gave money for schools, not scandals." And with every new post, every leaked receipt, the divide inside the community grew wider. And the whispers spread beyond this film. People started asking the hard questions. How many projects has he promised only to derail? How many donations have gone into a bottomless pot with nothing to show? With one producer stepping out of the shadows, those doubts are louder than ever. And her warning is chilling. She says he studied her, researched her finances, calculated how much he could squeeze before she snapped. If true, that's not leadership. That's predation. And the human cost? You can't ignore it. The producer admitted her blood pressure spiked just reliving those 3 days of filming and the months of threats that followed. She needed therapy just to cope. Think about that. A woman who thought she was uplifting the culture instead fighting for her sanity, her finances, and her reputation against a man she once admired. That's not a rumor. That's betrayal with scars that don't fade. And now, imagine if this heads to court. Those texts, contracts, and all-caps threats, they wouldn't just be whispers or leaks. They become public evidence. And if that happens, the world won't just hear her words. They'll see the receipts for themselves. If those texts, emails, and contracts ever hit a courtroom projector, it won't just be embarrassing. It could be catastrophic. The alleged threats in black and white would rip off the mask for good. Umar's reputation, his follower base, and every future project he pitched could crumble under weight of hard proof. Right now the tension is thick. Umar's gone quiet, and silence in the age of social media reads like an answer all by itself. People are watching, waiting to see if he'll fight with evidence or hide behind more bluster. The producer's story already planted doubt in thousands of minds, and once that seed grows, it's almost impossible to kill. The man who preached liberation now risks being chained by his own actions, accused of swapping consciousness for greed, control, and ego. Every step Umar takes from here will either shore up his defense or confirm the worst fears of critics who've long whispered about missing receipts and broken promises. The bigger question, did thousands mistake charisma for character? If this goes to court, it won't just be a legal fight. It'll be a full-on public unmasking. Imagine those so-called all-caps demands blown up on a screen. You do not have NY approval, while lawyers pick apart each line. Media sketches, viral sound bites, daily headlines. Every cross-examination became content for YouTubers and podcasters ready to tear his empire apart. And with ex-donors already popping off in comment sections about missing school funds, a trial could drag every unanswered question back into the spotlight. Meanwhile, the producer says the behind-the-scenes chaos was real and ugly. The lead actress bailed days before shooting after her boyfriend discovered Umar allegedly getting involved with the actress's relative, a revelation that forced refunds, a last-minute recast, and a full scramble. The set went from mission-driven to mismanaged overnight. The producer says she spent thousands more out of pocket just to patch things up, refund money, and shield the women on set from fallout that should never have happened. She isn't just making noise for clicks. She says she has receipts, texts, contracts, bold cap threats, and a pattern of behavior she calls psychological warfare. According to her, Umar allegedly researched her finances, looked up her home and studio value, and picked $500,000 as a figure meant to terrify and break her. That wasn't negotiation, she says. It was extortion dressed up as leverage, a calculated move to force control over finished film. And the human cost is brutal. The producer admits her blood pressure spiked. She needed therapy, and she had to shoulder legal and safety bills to protect staff. She says this was supposed to be a film about empowerment. Instead, it became the very opposite, exploitation. Now, the internet's detectives are pulling up old clips and speeches. Fans are divided, ex-donors are asking hard questions, and the community is left wondering whether the Prince of Pan-Africanism was ever sincere. If those receipts go public in court, this story could end with the crown stripped and the legacy exposed. He knew she was a single mother. He knew she had a business. He knew she couldn't afford a $500,000 fight. And yet, according to her, he tried to press her anyway. But she didn't break. She stood tall and refused to fold, refusing to hand him the film or bow to the pressure. Her words cut deep. She didn't just call him controlling or manipulative. She labeled Dr. Umar Johnson a financial rapist, saying he preyed on women, targeted their vulnerabilities, and tried to weaponize their trust for profit. Heavy language, yes, but she insists every syllable is true. To the public, he preached unity in schools. To her, he was a predator hiding behind a mask of leadership. Now the internet is ablaze. People are asking the questions Umar's dodged for years. Where did all the donations go? What happened to the FDMG Academy that never opened? If he could threaten a single mother for $500,000, what else was he capable of? Those doubts are spreading fast, and the timing couldn't be worse for him. She says she's ready for war, contracts, receipts, bank records, even cashier's checks with his name on them. She claims she can prove payments went straight into project he controlled. Her warning is clear. Go live and deny this, and she will unleash every piece of paper she has. No more whispers. Hard proof for everyone to see. What happens if this hits a courtroom? Under oath, texts and dollar amounts get torn apart by lawyers. Ex-donors are already resurfacing online, demanding answers about missing funds. A trial wouldn't just test Umar's story. It could drag every broken promise and unanswered receipt into the public square, turning sermons about liberation into courtroom fodder. And the human cost? Devastating. She described sleepless nights, panic attacks, therapy, and the raw humiliation of watching a project she believed in collapse. She put money in, kept the receipts, and now says she'll use them to expose the truth. Her final line was a promise. File the paperwork. Let's see you in court. If he goes public to deny her, she says she'll pull the 2019 records and give him enough rope to hang himself. But this was never just about money. According to her, it was about exposing a pattern, predatory behavior dressed up as leadership. She accused Umar of deliberately targeting vulnerable women, exploiting supporters, and disguising manipulation as revolution. To the world, he painted himself as a savior. To her, he was nothing but a financial rapist. Heavy words, but they stuck. That phrase is echoed through social media, replayed on live streams, dissected in podcasts, stamped into the public's mind. Once people heard it, they couldn't unhear it. And the question only got louder. How many more victims are out there? Critics immediately tied it to old controversies, the endless donations for the FDMG Academy that still sit unopened, the broken promises, the ever-changing excuses, the receipts that never matched the rhetoric. Add in the whispers from the film set about late-night flirting, pressure on actresses, and side entanglements, and the cracks in his image only split wider. To the community, Umar Johnson was supposed to be above the mess. Now, he is the mess personified. The producer isn't letting go either. She made one last vow, even if it takes 7 years, even if she has to unload every receipt she's kept since the day she backed him, she will get justice. Courtroom victory or public exposure. She swore he will face consequences. He tried to destroy me financially, she said, but I will not let him win. She called him a fraud, a liar, and a con man who preyed on the very community that believed in him. And with every word, you could feel the fury of someone who had been silenced too long finally breaking free. Now the stage is set. Will Dr. Umar Johnson bring receipts of his own? Will he open his books and prove he isn't the scammer people claim? Or will more women, more supporters, more producers step forward with stories that bury him for good. The internet is waiting. The community is watching. And sooner or later, the truth will surface through court filings, bank statements, or testimonies under oath. One thing is certain. The image of Umar Johnson as a savior is gone. What's left is a question that could define his legacy forever. Was he ever really fighting for liberation? Or was it always just another scam? And before you dip out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. This story is just heating up, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next.